Good evening and welcome to our Parsha and holiday class joined together as one. We're doing a hybrid class tonight, half hour on Bamidbar and half hour on the holiday of Shavuot, which is less than a week from now, and it's a holiday that we need to know a lot about because, for whatever reason, it doesn't have tremendous popularity amongst the Jewish world. It's like people didn't even know. I was at a meeting today, there's a Jewish attorney, and he's like, let's meet again next Tuesday. I'm like, next Tuesday is Shavuot. And he said, what? What's that? I said, he's like thinking I'm making up new holidays. But I said, no, it's the holiday we received the Torah. It's probably the greatest of all the holidays because without that, we wouldn't have any of the others. So we'll get to understanding a little bit about Shavuot also as part of tonight's class. And it's always preceded by the portion of Bamidbar. This Torah portion always comes the week before Shavuot. And there's a reason for that. And let's begin with the name. So the name Bamidbar means in the desert. A lot of people think that this book, if you look on the English side, the translation of this book, the fourth book of the Torah, page 825, is the book of, we have Bereshis, which is Genesis, we have Shemos, which is Exodus, we have Vayikra, which is Leviticus, and we have Bamidbar, which is, Numbers, but it's not Numbers. Numbers is not the translation of Bamidbar. Bamidbar means in the desert. It's also, by the way, Shemos also is names, and we translate that as Exodus. So I think it probably has Greek origin as to why they named it Exodus and Numbers, based on the themes of what the portion was about. But in reality, we name it by the Hebrew name, and Bamidbar means desert. So Numbers, it does talk about numbers. It counts, God is counting the Jewish people. It says Hashem loves the Jewish people so much that he always wants to count them. He always wants to count each and every individual every day. And especially at certain special times, when they came out of Egypt, he counted them after the sin of the golden calf, and some died, he counted them. There were a lot of periods where Hashem said, I want to count the Jews just like you would count your precious gems or something that's of great value to you. Hashem wanted to count the Jewish people. And the question that's asked about the name Numbers before we get to the actual name, which is in the desert, why the emphasis in the Torah? So fine, Hashem wants to count, and he wants to do that. So just say Hashem counted the Jews. Why do we need the details of every tribe, how many numbers they were? Because we're going to look through 825 all the way through till pretty much 831 is all just the census numbers, what each tribe's numbers were between the ages of 20 and 60, and then the families and their numbers. So it goes through all of this for one reason, one main reason. Torah is there to teach us, not just to tell us what Hashem likes to do, but it's to teach us what we should be doing and how we connect to Hashem. So the fact that there is an emphasis on all of the numbers of the Jewish people means to say that each individual really matters. If you're talking about numbers that ended in 8,321, that means that one was a necessary count in the accumulative number of Jewish people. It's very easy to say, we have a whole nation of Jews. We have this many Jews in 1926 and this many Jews in 1986, and we have all the specifics of general numbers. It doesn't give us an inkling into how important each number is, which is why the Torah never estimates. It doesn't give estimates of the numbers. It says each Jew is of value. Now, of course, but at the same time, there is a tremendous value in the community, in the collective. So you have both. You have a great value in collective, but you have great value in individual as well. There's a fellow who was in shul every Shabbos, and he stopped coming to shul. 2 weeks, he didn't come. The rabbi knew why. The rabbi knew that he'd gotten into a bit of a faribble with somebody, a bit of an argument. And he said, I'm not coming back to shul if that guy's there. And so the rabbi finally paid him a visit after a few weeks of not coming to shul. And he welcomed him in. He said, Rabbi, so good to see you. Come on into my home. How can I help you? Now, the rabbi noticed that there was a fireplace. It's one of those homes up in the north, and there was a fireplace there. And the fire was on. Fire was lit and was burning. So he just sat down and was looking at the fire. It was very awkward because he wasn't saying anything for like about 3 or 4 minutes. He says, Rabbi, is there anything I can get you? Would you like a tea? It's fine. Just sat there looking at each other. It's like, is there anything I can help you with? It's so honored that you came to my house. It's fine. He goes over to the fire after about 5 minutes. And he takes the poker. And there was like a piece of wood that had turned into like a bit of a coal, a bit of a red, flaming hot coal with fire flaming out of it. And he pushes it off to the side, all the way to the side of the fireplace where it's by itself. And he watches as the coal goes from flaming red to like a little lower flame, and then to like orange, and then to white, and then just a puff of smoke. And that was it. And they were both just staring at that individual coal turn into ash, cold ash. He looks at him. He says, I hope to see you in Shul next Shabbos. On that note, he left. Because we are very strong individually, and we count for something individually. But our strength as individuals is maximized when we are with others, when we're with many, the group. When their warmth creates our warmth. When we are contagiously enthused by our fellow that's next to us. When they're excited about something, we become excited about it. When you walk in and you're number 10 in the minyan, it's like, whoa, number 10. Now, that applies in the case of men with prayer, but it applies even in a case where you come to a place where there's a group of your friends, there's a group of women, there's a group of congregants that know you. You feel like I am extra as a result of the many. So yes, we have each our own individual role, but at the end of the day, we are filled by those who are with us. So that's why each number that's given is a very specific number, but it's incorporated into the larger number of who the Jewish people were and what they were amassed to in each tribe. To give you the real best way of understanding this, the Torah that we're about to complete in writing for the first time here in our community, which is a really special mitzvah and a really special energy that comes from that, has a lot of laws as to what makes a Torah kosher and not kosher. So here's the very powerful idea. If a single letter in the Torah is not kosher, the aleph is missing its leg, the entire Torah cannot be read from and is not kosher any longer. If there is a break in a vav, like the vav looks like it's a yud, a little break, and then the rest of the leg, not kosher. So we have to check the Torah regularly to make sure no letters are cracking, no letters have a break, no letters have been erased, or there wasn't an original mistake that was missed. The moment you find one letter that's off, the entire Torah becomes possible. So what does that teach us? That teaches us that in the Jewish people, you can have 300,000 and change letters in a Torah, which is 300,000 is a lot. But if one is wrong or missing or broken, then all the others are fractured and they're not counted. What a lesson that is to the importance of each individual amongst the Jewish people. And it should bother us that we're not complete unless there's those who have what they need. One of the reasons we break a glass under the chuppah is for the very same reason. How could I, at the peak of my joy, ignore that there are broken homes, that there are broken families, that there are people who are in pain right now? So if I really care of the unity of my people, I'll be happy, but I'll temper my joy a little bit until everyone has the same joy, until everyone can experience, and Hashem can bless everybody to be this joyful. And that's really what it represents with the breaking of the glass, which represents the breaking of the Beit HaMikdash, which represents the destruction of all the things that are broken today. That's what the Beit HaMikdash destruction led to. All the brokenness in broken hearts and broken homes, in painful experiences. That is what we're doing with the broken glass. So at that moment, we pause and we remember, I can't be fully joyful. The Mazel Tov right afterwards is very interesting, which not really for now, but right after we break the glass, everyone says Mazel Tov. We just did that because we're remembering the brokenness and the pain in people's lives. What are we screaming Mazel Tov for afterwards? It's almost like we're celebrating that. And all those people who are suffering, Mazel Tov, good for them. No, it's not very nice. So what are we doing? Why are we breaking the glass and then saying Mazel Tov? It's a personal lesson to us. That yes, there is collective pain, and there is suffering, and that we are very upset about. But what about in my own personal marriage and my own personal life? Right? I know that I have some brokenness in me. I have some parts in me that are not fully complete. And as I look at my beautiful wife and bride that looks like a queen and looks absolutely perfect under the chuppah, I know that she has some brokenness in her as well. She's human and she has flaws and she has things that are not fully repaired. And when I break something like this glass, I'm going to break things because I'm a mistake-prone individual. So I'm going to break things. I want her to say Mazel Tov. And when she breaks something, I want to say Mazel Tov, that I'm married to a human being who is comparable to me and not to an angel that is perfect and flawless, because we celebrate each other's brokenness as well as all of our completeness. And so a personal understanding of the brokenness is actually something that should enhance our marriage, not, God forbid, cause us to be separated because of that. And that's a big challenge. There's therapists that make millions of dollars on that, on how to repair people's brokenness. But the Torah tells us in the very first act of your marriage, you'll be married for 5 minutes. I'm telling you, just celebrate the brokenness. It's okay. You've got it too. They have it too. If you can both accept and celebrate that, you're off to a great start, great marriage. But don't be under any illusions that what you're seeing now is going to remain this perfect, unbelievable, pristine guy and this beautiful guy. He's going to drink out of the bottle and leave his socks on the floor. And she's going to ask you some more questions than you're interested in. That's what's going to happen. But that's part of what you say Mazel Tov for. Anyway, it's not so much for now. That's more of a marriage class, but we'll do that another time. So we're back to the collective versus the individual. So we just spoke about how each individual is so important that even if one letter in the Torah is broken, which each letter in the Torah represents every Jew, right? So yet you would think that if that's the case, let all the letters of the Torah unite in cursive script so they all connect to one another. Did you know that if one letter in the Torah is touching another letter, the entire Torah is invalid? So that's actually more common than a broken letter, is when the scribe just accidentally, because it's very small Torahs, some of them, and connect, and same in the tefillin and same in the mezuzah. If the two letters are touching, there's no gap of white in between the black, it's not kosher. You would say, what do you mean? What's wrong with them touching? Sing kumbaya, let's hold hands, let's join in song. We're united together. Nope. The Torah says, yes, it's good and it's true that we need to be together and responsible for one another. If one letter is wrong, the entire Torah is not kosher. But the letter itself needs to stand alone, because each individual has its own unique role to play and of extreme importance as to what their requirements are. And what better way to understand it and see it when we had 9 at the minyan on Monday and we're waiting. One more Jew to make a minyan of a group. And by the way, it could be that there are great tzaddikim in the group, righteous people, Torah scholars, and the guy who walks in is a simple bar mitzvah boy who barely knows anything. But boom, he's the one that makes the minyan. He's the one that brings it together, power of the individual. There is a law in kashrut, in the laws of kosher. You might be familiar with this law, that if unintentionally, inadvertently, you drop in a little bit of something not kosher into something that's kosher, a little bit of milk into a soup of meat, and then it's like, and it completely evaporates and dissolves in the soup. You can't find any traces of milk anymore. So if it was less than 1/60th of milk in comparison relative to the rest of the soup, it is absorbed and it remains kosher. If it's more than 1/60th, meaning you can probably taste it, that's what the 1/60th is. 1/60th means you can have a nice and tam. There's a little bit of a taste of the milk in there. Less than a 60th, you probably won't taste it. But that's where the metric comes from. More than 1/60th, it makes the whole soup not kosher. So this is a good let off for someone that accidentally puts a spoon in the soup and mixes the spoon. Like, oh my gosh, that's a dairy spoon. I just mixed it in the fleshik pot. Did it by accident. Did it with unintentional. If you did it on purpose, because a little bit of milk could add a little flavor. So, but I'm going to do less than a 60th, so I don't get in trouble. That's not acceptable, and that's why the kashrut items, the kosher items that you buy in the store, will not have less than a 60th of not kosher product, because when they're making it, the rabbis are watching and they're saying, oh no, you can't put that in deliberately, even though it's less than a 60th, because I'm watching you do it and I see it's not an accident and it's not inadvertent. But if a Gentile does it and they don't know the laws, and then the rabbi comes afterwards and says, what's in it? He says, oh, there's a little bit of milk in there. How much? Yeah, just like 1%. Oh, okay. That's all right. That could be okay, because it was found out after the fact. So knowledge is a very important thing. Very important thing. If you have to be honest. Well, that's what we hope for. But here's the interesting law in that law. Okay, because that could be something I get asked about a lot, because a lot of mistakes happen in kashrus and kosher homes, and the Bata B'Shishim law applies a lot. Now, if it creates a permanent taste change, like in a vessel, it's different than just the food item itself. So there's something like, for example, if you put the dairy pot into the meat oven, right? So that immerses the flavor of the meat oven into the dairy pot. The 60th can't be measured, so it's not something we can do. But there's an exception, and it says if the item even less than a 60th is a davar shebaminyan, which means it can be counted on its own. For example, let's say, I don't know what kind of individual item you can do this with, but let's just say the non-kosher item is a raisin. A raisin. And you drop the raisin in the soup. Right? So now, even though it's less than a 60th, it can be counted on its own as one raisin. It doesn't completely nullify and dissolve itself. That's the key word. It doesn't dissolve. It stays as a davar shebaminyan. It can be counted as an independent thing. Then, sorry, it is not kosher. So I'm saying this in reference to the same way that one individual can come and take 9 men and say, how do we get a minyan? And boom, changes the whole status of the shul. The same way the opposite can work for making a pot not kosher. If he stands alone as an individual, he can turn an entire shul into something that's treif. And so that's why the power of the individual can be extremely strong. And it's actually the Rebbe who taught us this in a very, very powerful way. You might think it's pretty out there, but one of the things that was asked of the Rebbe, like, what did you learn? What did you take from the Holocaust? It's just a story of tragedy, of great tragic proportions. And the Rebbe said, I actually learned from the Yamach Shemam, from the evil man who had intended to eradicate all the Jews. I've actually learned a lesson from him. What? He said the way he hunted every Jew with hate, regardless of their background, their observance, their affiliation, their nationality, their culture. They were Jewish in any way, he hunted them down in hate. We have an obligation and a mission requirement to hunt down every Jew with love. Because what happens on one side of the equation has to happen on the other side of the equation. And if one individual can cause so much pain in hatred by seeking any Jew with that kind of drive, that kind of insanity and obsession and craziness and murderous intent, then we have the obligation to do the same thing the opposite way. And he said, that's my mission, is to hunt every Jew in love and to bring them closer to Hashem, closer to Judaism, and closer to their roots and closer to themselves. So this is the power of numbers. It's the power of numbers, and that's why the Torah goes in to two sections of the beginning of this week's Torah portion, specifically allocated to the numbers.
How come all the numbers are round numbers? 300, and 300, 650. Like there's no, like it's not 45,653.
There are some that go a little bit off, but yeah, it's interesting. It is interesting to see that those numbers were round, because if you look at the let's look at the total. Still has a
number.
still comes 50. Yeah, it still has a 50.
I mean, they didn't round up, I assume.
No, it just may have just come out to be exact. That's a lot of things turn out to be very symmetrical in the Torah somehow, but I definitely does not seem in any way indication that there was a rounding or an estimation that went into it. It was because they had to count by the methods of the counting that were used, which included the half shekel. So they counted by the monies that were given in, and that's how they got to their numbers. It wasn't just like they said, okay, this looks like 50 people here. Let's just go with that. So they actually counted individually. Anyway, but this is all, by the way, the ages between 20 and 60. Why? Because the age between 20 and 60 is the age of a married man. So if you want to count families, this wasn't individuals, this was families. So each family was represented by one count. So in each family, and that's how they did so with the person between the ages of 20 and 60. But then you have the actual name of the portion, which is Bamidbar, which means in the desert. And this is where we connect to Shavuot. Where was the Torah given? In a desert. So Hashem took us to a place that no one could state ownership of. No one could claim that they owned it. So you had, let's give the Torah to the yeshivas. In the yeshiva, let's wait till we have a yeshiva center, because they're the ones who are going to be studying Torah more than everybody else. Hashem said, no. Let's take the Torah to let it be given in a field where they're growing crops, because so much of the Torah talks about the mitzvah of produce and agriculture. After all, every holiday pertains to the agricultural blessings that we receive. So let it be known that the farmers are the cornerstone of the Torah. Not that. Let it be maybe the university campuses. Let it be maybe the individual home of somebody, because that's where it all begins, in the home. And none of those were selected, including even the Mishkan, which was already established, the tabernacle. The Torah is not going to be brought from the Mishkan, because that's only the place the Kohanim and the Levites can go. You're going to say the following: if it's in any one of those places, the Torah is exclusively owned by the people of that place, by the practitioners of whatever that particular school of study, industry, skill set. They own the Torah, and they say we have more rights to it than anybody else, and we'll tell you what the Torah is. In the desert, there is no owners. There is no one who has anything. No one lives there. No one's interested in going there. It belongs to nobody, except for the person who decides, I'm going to go to this desert, and I'm going to make something out of it, like Israel does. I'm going to turn this desert into a blooming town. I'm going to make the desert grow. And I'm going to work really, really hard to establish some kind of infrastructure here. And the person who does that, they're fighting against the odds, but they're actually succeeding in creating literally something from nothing. And so Hashem gave us the Torah in a desert to say, here is an empty blank parchment. What are you going to do with it? Every other holiday, Hashem makes it so easy. Gives us the matzah, gives us the lulav and esrog, gives us a sukkah. I spoke about this a little bit on Monday. It gives us the things to connect with in that holiday, the shofar. So all we do is just catch the mitzvah and we feel connected. Shavuot is the only holiday that doesn't have a special mitzvah, because we have to look into the Torah. We have to say, what's my mitzvah? What do I connect with? And I want you to think, want everybody to think, what is a specific mitzvah that you have come to appreciate, you've come to connect with, you've come to observe maybe with a little bit more passion and a little bit more enthusiasm than maybe some others? That's okay. Because you created that little tree in the desert. You took what you created from the Torah that you discovered and brought it back to Hashem and said, this is what I want to give you. And it becomes your little oasis. And that's why Shavuot, the only real custom we have, is staying up all night to study Torah, because that's all we have to try and do is say, what can I find that's to discover on my own? That this is my Torah. This is my path to my journey. Anyone who is following the Torah because they're forced to, they missed the whole point of the Torah being given in a desert. They missed the whole point of you having to create your fertile area. If it goes into a specific place that you can connect with automatically, then the person who is a more learned fellow will say, I have to, the Torah is forced on me because that's where it was given. It's like the laws of a particular land, that you live in that land, so you almost you're forced to live by those laws. You don't have a choice. But the Torah, while we're forced to live by those laws too, it's what we make of it. It's what we create of those laws. You could look at Shabbos as being a series of restrictions, and then you're like, this doesn't do anything for me, all just from above to below, and I just feel inundated with what Hashem's telling me to do. Or you could look at it where I discovered the beauty of this. I found a connection to Hashem in this moment. When I put on the tefillin, I feel my connection to Hashem happening. It's my way of appreciating the Torah and the mitzvahs that Hashem gave me, that I've discovered. There are people who will often, when they remember a loved one, they will say, Rabbi, I want to tell you what my father's mitzvah was. This was his mitzvah. He loved Pesach. He loved going to shul. He loved giving tzedakah. Whatever that mitzvah was, they acknowledge and appreciate that they took ownership. Why? Because as a child, you saw the oasis. You saw the beautiful garden that was built from that desert by your father or your mother or your grandparents. It's a guy who came to Shlomo Carlebach, and he said, I have a serious problem. There's a guy in my unit who is driving me crazy. He's driving me crazy. He is always screaming, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. And I'm a secular Jew. I don't care about any religion. I don't care about God. And he's driving me nuts. So I can't. So he says to me always, you fight your way, I fight my way. So he came to Rabbi Carlebach to say, why does it bother me so much? Someone's asking about himself. The Shlomo Carlebach told him, because maybe deep down you feel that you should be doing this too, and you feel that that's also something, and you're almost jealous of him, like the guy who came to the Kotel. He was a secular Jew in 1967. We just celebrated Yom Yerushalayim, and he come to the Kotel, and he sees all of the soldiers crying, tears streaming down their face as they held onto the Kotel for the first time in their lives, and they had liberated the Har HaBayit, the Temple Mount, and they're standing at the Kotel. Shofars are being blown. Rabbi Goren's holding a Torah. It was the most emotional scene that anyone had ever been at. And this guy looks up at his atheist soldier's friend, who's a soldier, and he sees that he's also crying. And he asked him afterwards, he says, why are you crying? So he says, I'm crying because I am not crying. I'm crying because I'm looking at all of you and I see what this means to you, and I don't have this. For this I cry. So there are Jews that felt very, very disconnected, but they knew it. They know that they are. So this guy came to Carlebach and he said, why does it bother me so much? He said, I can't stand it. Religion is a bunch of fake news. It's not real. I'm an English professor. I focus on Shakespeare and Chaucer, the great writings. That's real art. Well, not this archaic thing. If you don't give Shabbos, you get stoned to death. Doesn't do it for me. So he gave him a little pep talk, a little lesson, talked to him with love. He didn't see him again until about 2 years later. It was after the Yom Kippur War. And he saw him and he comes to him and he's looks like a full-on religious man. He says, "What's going on?" He said, "I want to tell you, I was in the Yom Kippur War with this soldier in my battalion, and he was doing his thing, Shema Yisrael, screaming. I was getting so mad at him. And then, out of nowhere, there was a shot that rang out. I was hit by a sniper. But I was on a patrol. And I was by myself. I was just patrolling an area, and I fell, and I wasn't able to communicate with anybody. And I'm like thinking to myself, this is it. This is it, just like that, crazy. Just like I'm just gonna die here with bleed to death." And he says, I can't believe it. This is gonna come to an end." He starts thinking to himself as he's fading out of consciousness. He's thinking to himself, "What am I going to think about? My last moments of my life. What do I have? What do I have?" And he didn't even realize that his mind started to go back to when he was a kid. And he stood as a little boy by his mother who would light Shabbat candles. He looked up and he saw the love and the emotion in her eyes as she lit the Shabbos candles. He just remembered that moment. And he was very comforted by that moment. This was his last thoughts. And then he had this memory of his grandfather dancing with him, putting him on his shoulders on Simchas Torah in Shul, and sometimes walking back in Shul holding his hand. And he was remembering these memories. And he was thinking to himself, thank God I had those moments. Next thing he knew, wakes up in a hospital bed. And he said somehow his friends, colleagues came and they took him to safety and he recovered. And he said, after I came out of the hospital, I said to myself, I'm devoting my life to Jewish education. Why? He said, because one day, if my son is in that situation as well, and he's in his last moments, he'll have nothing to think about. He'll have no great memories, no beautiful experiences to think. What's he going to think about? King Lear, Chaucer, Hamlet. What's he going to think about? Because that's all I give him. So, in each and every one of us, we have a moment that we create our desert into a blooming garden, and it's never forgotten. It's witnessed by all around us to see what we have found in this place of barrenness, of great beauty. And I think it's very important for us not to pick a mitzvah, but to really immerse ourselves in one that we have discovered, that we have felt a great connection with. And maybe it's something that's not the run of the mill. Maybe it's, I'm a mezuzah guy. I just make sure all my doors have mezuzahs on the right way, and I check them all the time, they're kosher. And when I come in, I give them a kiss. And before I go to sleep, I kiss them 3 times. And my mezuzah is the scent, because I'm not saying I can't tell you what it is. I could never convince you, because that's not what Shavuot is. That's not what the Bamidbar is asking of us. The Bamidbar is asking of us, discover the corner that you can create, that you can make beautiful, that you can bring down from heaven. Not just it's coming down to you, but it's sent up by your effort. And that's the challenge of Shavuos. It's hard, it's not easy, and that's why it's not as popular as other holidays. It's not as easy as let's have a latke. Let's hear the shofar. Let's have apple dipped in honey. It's I've got to actually work on this to find what it is that's my piece of heaven in this world. And if we can do it with more than one thing, tavela bracha, kol hakavod. If we can do it with 5 things, 10 things, but it's something that you discovered. Don't let anybody tell you, you have to do this, and if you don't do it, you're going to burn in hell. That is not the way you create Torah in the desert. Create Torah in the desert by saying, I found it to be rewarding and beautiful. And that's why the whole book is called Bamidbar, because everything in this story is just a desert. That out of that desert came something extraordinary. Out of that barrenness came a beautiful outcome. And the stories are throughout the entire book. You have the story of the Bilam cursing the Jews, which turned into a blessing. You have you have a lot of mitzvahs of challah, which challah just takes regular bread and turns it into something of holiness. The Nazir, who takes his temptations and turns it into a positive way of serving God. It's everyone in the portion, even the spies who started off with a negative report and got punished for it. But it took it and turned it into a transformation of what the Jewish people recognized was the ultimate goal of going into Israel, which is not to escape into spirituality, but immerse yourself in the physical world and transform it into holiness. Yeah, make money. It's not a bad thing. Then use it for positive. Give it to tzedakah. Do it for mitzvah. So that took her 40 years to discover, because otherwise it was just like, no, I want to just go up to heaven. I want to go to my easy mitzvah. No, you've got to go in, dig deep, find it in the challenge, in the sweat of the brow, and then you'll find that there is beauty there too. This can be covered across a gamut of ideas in Jewish thought, most notably Mashiach, where Mashiach is literally the diamond in the rough, where you don't think there's anything there, and then you discover this beautiful gem that comes out. It's not only for what's going to happen in our generation, that we're the lowest of the lowest generation, and from that it's going to be the greatest gift. It's literally the Torah was given in a desert, which is that place of barrenness, but it's the idea that it's all about the transformation. It's all about what we achieve, what we do. So that's the Bamidbar note. Let's take a look a little bit inside so we get a little bit of a feel of what the portion is telling us. Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe, page 822. Bamidbar Sinai Ba'al Moed. God spoke to Moses in the Sinai desert out of the tent of meeting on the first day of Iyar. We are on the last day of Iyar right now, and this happened on the first day of Iyar, the second month of the second year after the exodus from Egypt, saying, take a census, count them, the males of the community of Israelites by their families. And then we'll add up the family totals to arrive at the total of each tribe. People's tribal lineage will follow their parental houses. So that's another interesting, important note. Your tribe is from your father. Your Jewish status is from your mother. And then it goes to list all of the different tribes and the countings in each tribe. And that is a lot of what the book of Bamidbar talks about, as well as the encampments where they stayed in their encampments. That is what we will touch upon in the book of beginning of Bamidbar. But as we did mention a little bit about Shavuos, I want to go a little bit more into Shavuos, if I may. So I want to tell you a medrash, tell you a story. In the Gemara, in tractate Shabbat, which is the second longest tractate of the entire Talmud. It's over 120 double-sided pages, which each one needs hundreds of pages in explaining each page. This is what it says. When Moses went on high to receive the Torah, the ministering angels asked the Holy One, blessed be he, Master of the world, what is one born of flesh and blood doing among us? God told him he came to get the Torah, came to receive the Torah. The angels protested. The Torah is a hidden treasure of your wisdom, and you desire to give it to man, flesh and blood? What is man that you shall remember him? Place your glory in the heavens. Basically, the angels were saying, we will maximize the wisdom and the holiness of your Torah because we are programmed to just emphasize and focus on you, God. When we say the blessings before the Shema, it's just the submissiveness of the angels that is there to remind us of how submissive we can be if we work on it. But the angels are naturally disposed that way. They're like, we are just servants of God, and we're enamored by everything God is doing, and we are programmed that way, and this is a place we will maintain the holiness of your Torah because we won't mess it up. Send it down there, they're going to stuff it up. They're going to destroy it. They're going to defile it. They're going to mistreat it. And it's your holiness. It's your crown of your glory. So the Holy One, blessed be He, said to Moses, you answer them. They make a good point. You have to give them the answer. I'm not going to be your lawyer, your defendant. You're the defendant on the behalf of the Jewish people. So Moses responded and he said, the Torah which you have given me, what is written in it? I am the Lord your God who took you out of the land of Egypt. Were the angels ever in Egypt? What else does it say? You shall have no other gods. You live among idol worshippers. You have other gods up there in heaven. And what else does it say? Don't work on the Sabbath. Do you work? You do labor on the Sabbath? Don't steal. You steal from people? That's a thing for you. You're worried about the behavior that way? Don't kill. You can't kill anybody. Jealousy? How can all these injunctions, said Moshe Rabbeinu to them, all these prohibitions against murder, adultery, stealing, lying, and coveting be for you? You don't even have an evil inclination that tries to draw you to commit these acts. When the angels heard this, they immediately admitted to Hashem that while they had the noble intentions, Moses was correct. That seems like a nice story, a nice idea. The angels wanted to keep the Torah, and Moshe explained that it's all written to us. There's more to it, as with everything in the Talmud. And the Rebbe shares the following explanation, the following insight. Why would the angels even think that God would listen to them and even deliberate over their argument? It's already clear. It says all those things in the Torah. Just give it to the men, give it to the humans, the men and women of Jewish people. What were the angels basing it on? So the angels were basing it on a law that's in the Torah. In the Torah, there is a law that is the following law. If I have this house, and next to my house is a field where I'm growing wheat, and I want to sell that field. Sell the field? I can sell it to anybody, but I first have an obligation to offer it to my next door neighbor. If it will enhance his field and he wants it, he should have the right of first refusal, because that's menschlich. It's the right thing to do. You're going to have some outside guy come in and take the field. He's next door. He's right there. It's perfect for his property to have an additional ancillary field. That makes the most sense out of anybody. So, called bar metzra, you have to give him the first right of refusal to buy the parcel of land from next to you. Very nice. It's a nice, beautiful mitzvah. What does it have to do with this? The angels were saying to God, your Torah says when you're willing to give something away, you have to first give it to your next door neighbor as an offer before you go giving it to people far away and offering it on the general market. So you're about to give the Torah to the people in the general market. The Jews are very far from you. We're right here. We're up in heaven next to you, where we can detect and connect to all of your beauty and glory. You have to offer it to us first, based on your own laws. Okay? Very nice. Good argument. Well, what did Moshe say? And Moshe could have said the following things. He could have said, do you know about the laws of Bar Mitzvah, angels? Do you know how it goes? So the laws go, first of all, it's only applicable with land, which is immovable. Right? So it makes sense. It's an immovable thing. It's next to you. But it doesn't apply if I want to give away my china cabinet. I want to give away my decanter. I want to give away an object, because that can move anywhere. So the fact that you're my next door neighbor doesn't count for anything. Because today you're the next door neighbor, tomorrow it's gone. So the Torah is a movable object, not earth. He could have answered that, but he didn't. Because they would have had an answer for that too. But then he could have answered that is true if the person who is selling it is selling it. But if he's giving it as a gift, he can give it as a gift to anybody. The law of Bar Mitzvah only applies if you're looking to sell. Is Hashem looking to sell his Torah? No, he was looking to give it as a gift. To give it as a gift, give it to anybody. Number 3, of course you have to give it to the neighbor first, unless the guy he wants to sell it to is his own son or daughter. In which case, the law of Bar Mitzvah doesn't apply because your son, your child comes first. Not general market. General market, fine. The open market, go first to your neighbor. But if you want to give it to your son, that usurps the next door neighbor's rights to first refusal. Hashem has told us, B'ni b'chayri Yisrael. When he took us out of Egypt, he said, we are his children. So if we are his children, it's the first rights. Go to us, and he can choose to whoever he wants to give. The other thing is that if the guy, and this is a really relevant one, if the guy who you're selling it to wants to plant it, wants to work the field, wants to grow because it's his parnasa, that's what he's going to make money, and the next door neighbor just wants to sit on it as an investment but not use it, not grow anything, then you say, I'm sorry, I still have to give it to the guy in the general market, opposed to you, because only if you want to grow something on it and you need it for your livelihood. So in this case, Moshe could have answered to the angels the same thing. You just want to sit on it. You're not going to use any of this stuff. And maybe that's what he was answering. And so the Jewish people, however, they're going to plant it. They're going to work it. They're going to use it. Different story. But he didn't use any of these arguments. What is the argument that he used? He used, do you have a father and mother? Did you descend from Egypt? And he went to point out that every single thing that the Jews are doing in the mitzvah is applicable only to the Jews and what they can do, and not to the angels. Why? Because there's one more exception to Bar Mitzvah. And this is what Moses was using. The exception is that yes, right of first refusal goes to your neighbor, unless the guy on the open market doesn't want it for a field anymore. He wants to build his house to live. He wants to have a home. And he needs the land to build his house. In that case, the Bar Mitzvah guy says, I'm sorry, it's next to you, but this guy needs to live. And Moshe Rabbeinu pointed out in his argument that the Jews' mission is to build a home for God to dwell in. God has said, I am not found in this lower order world unless I give the Torah to the Jews and they make me welcome and they make me comfortable. Every single mitzvah in the Torah, as listed by Moses with the 10 Commandments, the entire purpose of it is so that we can bring God into the world, so that we can make God welcome and give him a home. And so when Moshe answered, do you labor on weekdays? Do you have business dealings? Is there any jealousy among you? Do you have an evil inclination? What he was telling the angels was, by you not being involved in physical work and dealing in the business facts of life that we face daily, those challenges, we are creating with the Torah and mitzvahs a transformation of the world that could be evil into something that will become a place where God is comfortable, a place that God dwells. So if you want to know, based on this teaching, the entire purpose of the Torah and the entire purpose of Shavuot is if we are not succeeding at the goal of making this world a place where God is welcome, it starts with our own home, starts with our own 4 cubits, if you will, then we're not using the Torah in the right way. And what that means is that we have to always consider how we're impacting either the physical objects that we're dealing with, the people we come in contact with, our environment, society, whatever it is that we are in contact with, are we turning it into more of a godly place or is it less of a godly place? When Rabbi David Leib Grossman, or Yitzchak Grossman would come in to, and I told you, I shared this with you once, I think on a Shabbos morning, he would walk into a nightclub on Friday night and he would say, Chaver, we're going to make Kiddush. And people were dancing and wearing who knows what, but they would come around and he would sing a few songs with them and he'd make Kiddush. He did that because he said, this is the mission of us, of our world, is to bring a little godliness into an otherwise unholy, dark place. And we have the mitzvahs, the 613 commandments, at our disposal to use as squeegees, as cleaning devices, as a place that, and by the way, the mezuzah is a perfect example of that. We say to Hashem, in this house, you are welcome. We put the menorah by the window to say, we are trying to spread the goodness from our home into the dark world outside at night. And every mitzvah has the same connotation. How am I improving and fixing an otherwise negative place? So if you want to know the real response to anti-Semitism, which is the perpetuation of darkness in the world to try and create less godliness, because say what you want about anti-Semites, there is one mission that they have, and their mission is to remove godliness from this world. And Jews represent godliness just by their very being. Their very breath that they give is from their neshama, from their soul. They want to remove that. And Hitler said in his book, Mein Kampf, he said, the Jews were the conscience. They left a scar on the body, left a scar on the soul. Scar on the body was circumcision, scar on the soul was conscience. You know what conscience means? Conscience means when everyone feels bad that they're not doing the right thing because of the teachings that Torah taught of what it is to do the right thing. If you don't have anyone shining light, darkness is a great place to be. As soon as there's a little bit of light, it's like, yeah, it reminds me of how it should be and what we should be doing with the world. So at any time we're thinking, what can we do to counteract anti-Semitism? Continue making this world more of a place for God and bringing that holiness in, because that is the greatest winning act that can prevail over what their achievement is trying to accomplish, trying to get rid of all that light, get rid of all that brightness and all the holiness. They don't want our God to be present in the world, because our God is a God of light, a God of goodness. They want darkness, they want death. And so that is our answer. And it doesn't mean to be that we're anti-Semitism. We're pro-positivity of Judaism. And that's how we win. That's how we've always won. That's how we've always prevailed. And that's the story I said with the Harvard mezuzahs. That's how we won. And we put up 50 more mezuzahs than were taken down. They are destroyed on the inside when that happens. You can scream and yell back at them. You can go and cause them to get arrested and everything else. And that's all fine. You got to do what you got to do to keep us safe. But when Hitler walked into the bunker, he took with him a Talmud. They found in his bunker, a Talmud Psachim, the tractate of Pesach, in his bunker where he went to hide from the Allied armies. Why? Because he found one on his way. He saw a Jewish book and he said, oh, for my museum, for the people that once existed, I have to remember to put this book in to show that this is one of their books of this extinct people that no longer exists. He thought he would make a museum. He's still at that point, at that moment, that he was so obsessed with removing the Jew. He just wanted that evidence that it once existed, but it doesn't exist anymore. Yeah, and yet so many stories of the opposite story happening, of Jews who had lost everything and they found a way somehow to keep their connection to Torah and to God alive. And story of a guy who left the expulsion of Spain, and that day was Tisha B'Av, was boiling hot summer day. The 300,000 Jews leaving Spain. And he was walking with his family, and they had no food and they had no drink. And they're just walking. They were going till as far as they could go to escape. They were going to be killed otherwise. And or they had to convert. And they're walking, and they're under really oppressive heat. This is after he already lost his job, he lost his community, he lost his life, he lost everything. And one by one, his family began to fall. And they couldn't survive. And he just didn't know what to do, where to go. They didn't have anything to eat, anything to drink, until he was the only one left. And he screams out. The story is actually attributed to a man. it just eludes me the name of him, but the story is told of a true story, and he cries out. He's all by himself, and he cries out and he says, Hashem, you have taken everything from me. You have taken my home. You have taken my possessions. You have taken my business. You've taken my belongings. You've taken my community. You've taken my ancestry because that's where they lived. You've taken my children. You've taken my wife. And you're going to take me soon. But I want you to know that you will never, ever, ever take my faith in you. No matter what you do, you will not take that away. That's crazy. That's like a level of such unbelievable purity of the soul. It's not even describable. You can't touch it. So that's the story of the Jewish people. We Hashem will not ever allow us to be gone, not ever allow us to be diminished in that way because of what our mission is, to make his home. He wants a home. So he wanted. He said, I can't do it in the lowest place. I mean, Hashem can do it, but he chose not to do it. In the lowest place, can you make me feel welcome because you chose to? Because you chose to have that happen. And that's ultimately what Matan Torah is, the giving of the Torah is. And each and every one of us have done it to a very, very large degree already. We keep doing it. And for that reason, we are the light. We are the light and we are the goodness because that's what we stay focused on. And by the way, it's all simultaneous with making a home for ourselves. When you make a home for God, you thrive, you prosper, you flourish and have meaning. You find life's enhancements working to your benefit. If it just is a world that you're chasing and you're trying to create for yourself and selfishness and greed and envy, that person's miserable. It's a just complete disaster for that person. But the moment they change their focus to say, my mission and my purpose is to create godliness in this world and to experience that in a wholesome, real way, everything starts to feel more positive and more vibrant, more joyous. On that note, pretty intense share actually tonight. Didn't mean it to be. So it'll be a bit lighter than that. But wish you a very happy Shavuos holiday coming up. At the end of the day, we have flowers on Shavuos. We have cheesecake, dairy ice cream, blintzes. It's a fun holiday too, because we were babies and we were born into being Jews. And so what do babies get? Babies drink milk. They're nourished with the dairy of their mother. Any animal is given milk from birth. It's the holiday of nourishment. It's the holiday of growth. And that's one of the reasons we have it. Torah is our nourishment, especially in our early days. Shkoyach.